All right. Well, warm greetings to everyone. And thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to join us for this important conversation themed It Takes a Village, which really connects with the institutional value at APU of community. And so we will have the distinct pleasure of learning from the lived as well as the leadership experiences of uh, our esteemed leaders of our Black ethnic organizations. And so we're so thrilled that they were willing to honor the invitation to be a part of this conversation, to graciously share um, some of their experiences at APU, but even beyond the university. We'll be able to hear about their aspirations and interests as well. But we're confident that this is going to be a very engaging experience for our community. We do understand that not everybody could join us today because of the time, but we will record this session and we will share it broadly with our university community. And so for those who will join us via recording, thank you for taking time out to review and to listen to the thoughts, the ideas um, that are expressed by our Black student leaders. Uh, the other thing I want to share with you, this event is sponsored by the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Division. My name is Keith Hall. I serve as Vice President, Chief Diversity Officer, a member of the President's Cabinet. And we're so privileged to host this event, especially during this month, which is designated as Black History Month. This is a time that we honor the culture, the heritage, the contributions, the inventions, the intellections, the art that was authored, created by Black men and women who helped shape um, the order, the culture within America. And so we're so thrilled that we're able to have this conversation with the next crop and this generation of leaders who um, identify APU as their academic home. FYI, the units within the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Division include the Student Center for Reconciliation and Diversity. Some of you know it as affectionately as SCRD, the Center for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusive Excellence, as well as the Office for Military, Veteran, and Veteran Services. Quick acknowledgements, just scanning over um, the participant list. We are so honored to have President Ferguson joining us for this conversation. Also, Chief of Staff Megan Prosser, and so it's always an honor to have the Office of the President in the midst. So grateful for his leadership and chairship of our university strategic plan, which is designated as renewal. Some of you may not know this. One distinct action item in the strategic plan is amplifying the influence of our ethnic affinity organizations. And so we appreciate his leadership in co-constructing the plan, making it a broad-based experience that engaged all of our community. And now that we're at the implementation phase involving working groups, we appreciate his inspiration and his leadership throughout the process. So I think that's all the acknowledgements. Again, we see so many faculty, we see deans, we see department chairs, we see other student leaders and other students that are present here for this conversation. And on behalf of our division, we want to sincerely thank you for making this conversation a priority. So let me open our time in prayer, and then we will transition to introductions, and then we'll jump right into the conversation. So most of the time is spent gleaning and learning from our panelists. If you'll pray with me. God, we thank you for this day, and we thank you for your blessings. We're blown away by your abiding presence, the way that you love us, the way that you design us, the way that you saturate our lives with purpose. We thank you so much for the panelists. the way that they express service across our institution, the way that they live with authenticity, with enthusiasm, with inspiration, um, and with an aspiration for greatness. We're looking forward to learning from them, hearing their thoughts, um, taking their observations to heart. And Father, we just pray that you bless our community that's diverse, that's filled with individuals from different walks of life and different lived experiences and different backgrounds. And Father, we feel that that reflects your kingdom, and we're grateful to be a part of such a community. And so we thank you for giving us and blessing us with this time together. In Jesus' name we do pray. Amen. So before we proceed with introductions, I would like to reference a quote that's coined by Gwendolyn Brooks, the renowned author, poet, one of the first African Americans to be awarded the Pulitzer Prize. She shared this quote: "Do not desire to fit in, desire to oblige yourselves to lead." And in so many ways, the student leaders that you're about to meet, they embody that quote. I've spent time with them. I'm blown away by who they are, the way that they serve at APU in a very selfless manner. In so many ways, they also embody our institutional values of Christ, scholarship, service, and community. And they do an exceptional job at translating that to their followership, to other students, to faculty and staff. And so if we were in a room, we would definitely extend thunderous applause upon their introductions. But if you can relay that telepathically, we would really appreciate it. But at this time, I want to give you an opportunity to meet our panelists.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mireya Smith. I am joining this call from West Sacramento, California. I am an undergraduate senior graduating this spring, and I am serving as the president of the Black Student Association, also a psychology major. So thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you for joining us, Mireya.
Hello, all. I'm Caston. I am coming to you from West Covina, California, but my hometown is New Orleans, Louisiana, so represent. I am a second year graduate student. My major that I'm getting right now is educational and clinical counseling, and I am the president of the Black Graduate Student Organization. So thank you also for having me.
It's great to see you, Bishan. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, I'm Brandy Cannon. I am in my second year of a 2-year program, the clinical psychology with emphasis in marriage and family therapy program. And I'm joining you as the co-president of the Society of Black Clinical Psychology Students. And I grew up here in California in the Gardena area, and I'm currently in Torrance, California.
It's great. Good to see you, Brandy. Thank you for joining us.
Welcome.
Welcome all. I'm Joshua Canada. I'm coming to you from Monrovia, but I am from Virginia, the Lynchburg, Southwestern Virginia. I am finishing up my last semester of courses in APU's PhD in Higher Education department. And I represent the Black Doctoral Student Association, which is really rooted within the PhD and EDD programs in the Department of Higher Ed.
It's great. That's great. Well, it's good to see all of you. Audience, you can tell we have a great panel. So I want to start with probably a bit of a softball question, but it will probably challenge you to reflect on when you were going to make the decision to come to APU. And it's an interesting dynamic. I actually have a son who's a senior in high school. And so we're going through this process of considering, okay, what are his possibilities? And so it is the idea that the institution chooses you, but you also choose the institution. So I want to ask this question: why did you choose APU? And was your perception of APU when you made the choice align with your experience? And maybe that's not a softball question. Who wants to take a stab at that? Why did you choose APU? And was the perception of APU when you made the choice align with your experience?
Yeah, I actually had like 2 opportunities to choose APU. And so the first one I learned about APU in high school, which seems like forever ago, but because I played basketball and was interested in playing for APU. But I ended up having my first daughter when I was 17. So I actually chose to go to DeVry University at that time because they had a schedule that worked for me as a mom who needed to work. And then now as a graduate student, I chose APU in a different situation, but because I wanted to attend a Christian university, and that was really what the driving choice was. I was choosing between Pepperdine and APU, and I felt like the Christian aspect of APU was felt stronger for me based on what I knew of the school, and it also cost less.
Yeah. And I want to affirm that choice. You made the right one, you know. Maybe you can tackle the second part of the question too, Brandy. Was your perception of APU when you made that decision to come and be a part of the community, was it aligned with your experience?
I would say that from a Christian perspective, with that being like one of the major reasons in choosing APU, yes and no. I think that there's some things about diversity that have impacted my perspective that I think are opportunities for APU to be more supportive of some of the students and the Black students specifically in terms of taking care of us and welcoming us. And aside from that, other aspects of Christianity did meet my expectations.
Thank you. Thank you. Mireya?
Yeah.
Why did you choose APU? Yeah.
So I always tell people that APU was definitely not my first choice. Originally, I was planning on attending an HBCU. So that's the historically Black college and university. So Howard, Spelman, Hampton, those were all my top choices. But just financially, it wasn't a realistic route for me. At the time, when I was a senior in high school trying to decide where I was going to go, my sister was already attending APU. So I had that family connection. I'm also a PK. My dad's a pastor. So it was like really encouraging of going to a private Christian university, and the idea of having both of his daughters there, I know just made him ecstatic. So I ended up deciding to go to APU because I got accepted into the Mel Scholarship Program, comes out of the SCRD office. And it was something that I was really praying about. I was saying, you know, God, like if I get into this program, I think I can make APU work. Originally, the stigmas that I had in my head about APU was that it just wasn't that diverse. I didn't know if there were students who looked like me. I didn't know if I'd be able to find community or my place. But I had a strong feeling that if I got accepted into Mel, I would immediately have a family that would look out for me and that would help me to grow and start my journey in understanding my racial identity development. So fortunately that happened. I'm a proud Mel scholar. I also found out that APU had a Black Student Association. I was like, yes, okay, I can make this work. So that's kind of how I made my decision, and I decided to go to APU. And then in terms of did the school meet my expectations, or kind of did it have the expectations that I had going in? I think APU surpassed my expectations. Like I said, I didn't think it was going to be that diverse, but there was something about the incoming class in the year of 2017. I feel like we brought a lot of diversity to the school. I lived in Adams Hall. So many women of color living just within my floor. It was great. Literally, we were all like, did not expect to see you here. So I think that really helped. There's still, I think, this cultural climate at APU that we'll probably get into discussing a little bit later in this discussion today, that did meet the expectations that I had about it. But overall, I'm proud to say that my experience at APU has been overall good.
Thank you for sharing. And that's something let's definitely talk about a little bit later, the difference between representation and climate and overall culture, because I would like for all of us to learn about your experience as it relates to climate, how you felt about navigating the APU experience. Thank you, Mireya. Bishan?
I knew you was coming to me. Okay. But yeah, so if you don't know, I think we've had so many conversations, but I'll share for the group.
Yeah.
APU was not my first school. APU was my third golden school. I call it my golden school. The Lord had different plans for me as far as like my college journey. And I
Yeah.
think he did that on purpose. I'm a very organized, plan by plan type of girl. I thought I was going to go to my first school, which was Mobile University, University of Mobile in Alabama. I ran track country there. I thought I was going to go there, finish there strong, but God had other plans for me. I had to go to a second school just due to a medical situation. And also from that school, God had other plans for me, medical situation. And I just had to take some time away from school to kind of realign myself with God's will. So he decided to bring me to APU in 2017. And as far as did I choose APU or did APU choose me, I think it was kind of God was the middleman type of situation. He allowed us to choose each other. It was just kind of brought to me through a cousin who went to APU, and it just started from a question of like, hey, I want to finish school. I'm ready to get my education and complete it. And she was just like, have you ever heard of APU? And I was like, girl, no. So I was like, who and where is who? So I said it wrong for like a month. I finally did have an opportunity to come to APU for a transfers tour day. It was a birthday gift to myself, actually. I came for my birthday. It was in May, and we just made a trip out of it. Me and my parents got on campus, and we just felt like it was a yes. And that was big coming from a mother who's like, I need her right by me. I need to see her. So that was really big. I was like, that was a God move for him to let my parents feel comfortable with me being across the country from them. So I did come to APU and I thrived there. And like I said, it was my golden school. I did finish there on my birthday, 2019.
That's awesome.
And so to tackle your second portion of the question, my expectations for APU were God-based. I don't think I was looking at APU as its own entity and gave it expectations. I was more so like, Lord, you know what? I've been through so much and you brought me through so much. You brought me here. So what's up? And I had so many experiences with colleges before that I think I had learned to see what I needed to see instead of trying to look at, specific pieces of the picture. I'm just like, what's the whole picture? I know a college will not always be perfect, but like, what is the whole picture that you brought me here to see? And as far as that expectation, like it also exceeded my expectations of just like what God brought me to. And like Mireya had said, we're going to get into certain discussions later on, but I think whatever we bring up in that discussion as far as like diversity and support and advocacy, I believe that is the whole picture, just bringing it here, just like, hey, you were not brought here to be put down or to be put aside, but to bring attention to those things when they do happen and to bring change to those things, because it's time for it to end and to move forward. So
that's helpful. Thank you, Bishan. You have a unique experience too, Bishan, on this panel in that you were a transfer student. Mireya, you started as a first-year student, and Brandy, you started as a grad student. Joshua, you came as an employee first, right? Is that correct? And then doctoral studies.
Yeah.
So some very interesting lenses that all of you bring to this conversation. Joshua, why don't we segue to you and get your response to the question?
Yeah. It's an interesting piece on the doctoral side, because you're looking at, yes, you're looking at the institution as a whole, but you're really looking at the program and the professors in the program. And connectedness over areas of research and inquiry. And I think for me, that's really where I focus. So yes, at the time when I started, I was an employee, but actually kind of had looked broadly, and there were other institutions that I was very interested in. And I think as I started to ask questions around in other higher ed programs, who was there, getting to know the professors, seeing both the compositional diversity of the higher ed program at APU, from professors who've been here for a while to those who were coming in, and then the diversity of their areas of study, their kind of epistemological approach to research, researching things, yes, in faith-based Christian higher ed, but also more broadly as higher ed as industry. And then even the things that impacts higher education, like economics and the carceral system, and how that impacts this thing of knowledge production. So I think the uniqueness of APU's program and intersecting kind of these different social science lens upon higher education was really attractive to me. And I think the other piece, right? So again, for doctoral work and grad work in general, you think about kind of who you're in the program with. So a substantial connection was I had a friend who did their graduate degree with me, who's a Black woman, who she was also interested in the program. So it was helpful that we both knew that we would be taking this journey together again, both the history of doing it once before and being able to kind of go into this experience kind of with our Black selves and kind of racial realities into our program, and automatically knowing we had someone there to go to.
Yeah. That's huge, like that cultural connection and cultural experience. That's why I think your response provides a good opportunity to transition to another question. So the collegiate journey is not just an academic experience, right? It's a cultural experience. What are some of the specific cultural hurdles that you faced, maybe cultural challenges that you faced while you navigated APU, and what were some strategies that you used to mitigate those challenges? So cultural hurdles and challenges, and what are resources, whether internal, social, that you leverage to mitigate those challenges?
I can start off with one. This is
Yeah.
kind of just a low, light one. I remember when I first came to APU, like welcome weekend, and like even I think up until like my junior year, since we're operating remotely now, but it was always kind of around like welcome weekend where me and my other friends of color, we kind of felt like disconnected a little bit from the campus, and it was because of the music that was playing.
Yeah.
This is always a fun one that I like to share. I remember I was an alpha leader my sophomore year at APU, so we get to go to welcome weekend again. You get to experience it this time as like a mentor, as someone who's like looking out for the first years, inviting them in. And they were playing like Justin Bieber, like Hannah Montana. And I remember like some friends and I, we went up to like the person who was the DJ or whatever. And I was trying to play like the Mel card. I was also at the time serving as the recruitment officer for BSA. So look, I was like, I'm serving as like the Mel Scholar. I'm on the board of the association. I'm trying to advocate for like the students of color. Like, please, 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 can you play some like other music? I know there's got to be some clean music by some Black people, by a person of color, like somebody out there, please. Like we're trying to like create this like culture, this campus of care for all students. So I think that was like a big thing that I always remember about APU was just the music that was playing. I was always kind of paying attention to the small things, the details about if you really want to welcome in students, what does it look like to welcome in not just one community of students, but all communities of students. So that's a fun example of a little cultural challenge that I saw and like a way that I try to approach it.
Yeah. And it's interesting, like a subtle change such as that can make a significant impact.
Yeah.
And no offense to Justin Bieber, right?
No offense.
Justin Bieber or
love him. He's great.
Joshua, what did you say?
Took you up a little bit.
So you know the audience is so Mireya, you know the audience is curious. What should have been on that playlist? At least just one song.
You know, we could have had some Whitney Houston, some Michael Jackson, some Beyonce.
That's right.
There's so many things. And fortunately, they did end up playing some good songs. You know,
That's cool.
they did the "Watch Me Whip," "Watch Me," so you know, it was they tried. It was a little bit of effort, so it was great. And I think I was really excited to see just, you know, the people of color, not even just people of color, but people who appreciate, you know, Black music. You don't have to be Black to appreciate Black pop
That's
culture
right.
and entertainment. So seeing like other students' faces light up and be like, wow, like I can relate to this song. Now I want to
Sure.
be here. Now I'm excited. That was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. I'm telling you, you just shared a very powerful thought, Maria. These types of changes, they don't just impact students of color, it impacts the entire community. And I would say that our community has a desire and appetite for that degree of diversity in terms of culture and exposure to difference. So thanks for sharing that example. That's a good one. It's a good one. Others?
Go.
Go ahead, Bishan.
Yeah, so my second year at APU, I was an RA, and that was an experience in itself. And I just believe like it might not have been vocalized, but you know, when you get that like, oh, your spirit's telling me, you know, I had, I guess, that Black mama type of vibe going on in my court,
Yeah.
and it's like it just became that culture of just like, oh, Mama B, or Mama S. I don't know where the name came from. Didn't tell them call me that. Like, you know, just like Mama B, Mama B. I'm just like, huh, what? Like, you know, and it was like, you know, at first I didn't know whether to take it as a like compliment or just be like, like, you know, like, where does that come from? Like, where are you getting that from? You know, type of thing. And within that, like, you know, that was something that I kept at the back of my mind as well. Of just like,
Yeah.
how am I being viewed? Of just like, am I your RA, or because I'm Black, I'm Mama B, you know, type of thing. So it's like, you know, I kind of let it slide with that situation. But there were other like instances as an RA, I would say, that kind of make like had to challenge myself, you know, to like, you know, like what line do I stay, like, you know, what side of the line do I stay on? I'll give an example. It was the Black History Month of, I believe, of 2018.
Okay.
No, 2019. Yeah, of 2019 was the Black History Month, and me and a fellow, like, you know, member of my team, of my RA team, had to plan the event for the month. It was our turn, and instantly we was like, it's Black History Month, let's
Yeah.
do something for Black history. And we had two other members that was helping us. It was two, like, you know, members who was not of color, and we were planning. And so right when we came up with that idea, we brought it to them, and we was expecting so much support, and we were expecting like someone to say like, yes, like that makes so much sense. But it was the total opposite. We
Yeah.
got questioned, and we were told like, what if other students feel excluded? I'm like, who? Or, like, you know, like excluded, you know? And I was blown away. I was just like,
Yeah.
that was not the words I was expecting to come out of your mouth. I was expecting you to like cheer us on and ask, how can we be of service? How can we be of help? How can we learn? You know, but that's not what we got. And I had
Yeah.
to sit at a table and try not to be Mama B, and just like, you know, make that full circle of just like, you're making me mad, because I'm just like, hey, why are you giving me so much strife about it? I was just like,
Yeah.
we just want to create something for students. It's Black History Month, for crying out loud, you know. And I was just like, and it's not anything. We didn't tell other students they couldn't come. I was just like, we were doing, I think we chose to do a open mic night, and students would, like, you know, students of color were welcome to like do the open mic and so on and so forth, like prioritize the Black students to do an open
Yeah.
mic, and then invite other students who wanted to speak. We didn't exclude, we didn't say only Black students. It was just, we just couldn't understand of like, where is the discrepancy of what we were trying to do for our
Yeah.
students, and like really trying to, like I said, choose what side of the line I want to be on. Of just like, do I try to educate you, or do I sit in anger because this is happening to us, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
You know, overall, after I think a lot of deliberation and debate and just trying to stand ground, we got our event to go by, and it was an amazing event. It's like students of color, students who were not of color, they came and they sat and they enjoyed themselves. And our leader, our RD, the resident director, always lets us have like, you know, moments of like feedback, which is like, how do you feel like the event went? Did you enjoy it? So on and so forth. And we sat in that, and I watched the two members that were kind of debating us, like almost not look at us. And I was just like, you know, like, hey, like, you know, I want to hear what you have to say now. I want to hear, where was the concern that you were telling us about? Like, where was that? You know, like, did you see it? Did you feel, did someone come up to you and tell you, we felt excluded? And I was like, what was it? And so it's just, like I said, the two stories that I connected just now, just like, well, yeah, I don't want to be Mama B because I'm just a Black female walking around making sure you're doing what you're supposed to do. I want to be Mama B because, hey, when I see something that's being, like, you know, pushed aside and having students feel as though, well, you don't have a voice, because if we give you a voice, then all of us are going to feel like we don't have one, when we've always had one, you know. So, that was my
Thanks, Bishan. Thanks for sharing that example. I mean, kudos to you for your persistence. I do know that it can be exhausting fighting those battles and even taking initiative to try to educate, to kind of push something that you would probably say, hey, this is a small deal. Like, I mean, this is so obvious. But I understand that can produce fatigue. We actually have a question from Dr. Sam Gurgis, who's one of our faculty members, a faculty member at APU. He asked the question, I wonder how supported Bishan felt by her RA supervisors when you had, you know, this experience, and did it shut you down, or did you feel empowered after the referenced outcome? And maybe just concisely.
Yeah, no worries. As far as my RD, he was very supportive. We're very close. And if anything, he placed himself in a position of just like, I know there are things that I don't know. Would you be so kind to inform me? And that's the position he held. And I did feel empowered from that. As far as the overall outcome, I think I had to sit down with myself and reflect on how I want to move forward. Did I want to look at my co-members that were helping me? Like, did I want to look at them just like, don't talk to me? Or did I want to say, like, you know what, this just tells me that there's still work to be done. And I want to treat them with grace. And I want to treat them as if, like, you know what, if we all fall short, we all have moments that, like, things that we don't know. And I just it was the big decision to move forward in that way, because it was hard and it was exhausting. So I hope that answers your question.
Oh, it does. Thank you for sharing that. That's good. It's good. Let's get one more response to the question, like the cultural hurdles, challenges that you faced, and how did you mitigate that challenge?
I think I'll for any psychology and counseling people might appreciate, I'll bring it in the room here, that the cultural hurdle is experienced anytime I even have to do one of these meetings, that because I teach mindfulness to my clients, I'm always like, how does your body feel? What emotions are you feeling? And like, as soon as I saw the participant list, I was like, anxiety, like I can feel my heart pumping, I can feel my body shaking. And when I have to stand up and be a leader, it's this like constant management of anxiety and fear, especially as a student, because there's a power differential that I'm very aware of. And the good thing about APU is that I developed a huge like booster, I would say, in my cultural awareness and even of who I am culturally here at APU. And the outcome of that is that I became more aware of it. So I was just like, whoa, what? Oh no, like my eyes are even open more now. And so I tend to use my therapy skills to overcome those challenges. Like, how am I going to do relaxation techniques when I do these meetings? How can I look at APU and the clinical psychology world as a system. And what would I do as a therapist? I would call out, like, this is an injustice that's being passed down from other generations. And how can we identify those things, bring them forward, and then problem solve them? And one I'm like focusing on right now is like with our curriculum, that I'm often provided a text that was not written for me. And I have to go back to like when I was in 3rd grade and learned how to write a book. The first thing I considered was, who is my audience?
Yeah.
And I've become even more aware now because of my training at APU that most of the books I'm given are not written for me as an audience, and are written for people of a different demographic and privilege in many cases. And so it's things like that, again, using the skills that APU is giving me through my program to identify, like, how can we fix this system, and then bringing it forward and participating is how I've been able to navigate some of that.
That's really good. Brandy, what a great example. Thank you for sharing that. And I think that provides a real nice segue for us to talk about the breadth of DE&I. So it's one thing, I think, to have a conversation about diversity, which is really, really key. And I think we should celebrate the degree of diversity that's reflected across our institution, right? Because that, having over 60% of our students identify as students of color, that's not at every institution. And that's a real blessing. And I think there's incredible opportunity to learn from individuals from different cultural, ethnic backgrounds and different lived experiences. But I think what I'm hearing from all of you, and this is definitely at the heart of the strategic plan, is that diversity by itself is not enough, that there has to be an emphasis on inclusion as well as equity. And to me, the bedrock for an institution to be inclusive, where all members are able to thrive, really is attributed to climate. And so, Joshua, I want to come to you to start us off with this next question. In your estimation, how can APU grow to create a climate and a culture that enables Black students to thrive? And when I say that question, and I say Black students, I know that whatever adjustments, changes we make institutionally, it will not just benefit Black students, but all of our students, but specifically our students of color. So do you mind kind of speaking and providing a response to that question?
Yeah. I actually going to start in that by bringing a link from Brandy. I think the fact that we have there's this paradox in having ethics committee orgs, and that they are necessary, but they are fatiguing at the same time. So we value the relationships that we have in them, but it's also this reminder that the institution, the structures, the curriculum aren't set for us, and so we're advocating. Many of us are advocating and pushing for change. So I think they're inherently kind of paradoxical for many of us in it. They give us life and they exhaust us at the same time. So I think thinking of that question for APU and the things that we can do. I think one of it is just this deep dive into what are we teaching, who we're reading, and whose ways of thinking are we engaging in our various programs. I think from the undergrad levels, we think about GE, to our particular master's levels programs, to our doctor's programs, to whose information matters, whose lived narratives matter. Are the majority of our books by and perspectives that are underneath those words, from certain socioeconomic, racial, even I'd say kind of religious expression. If anyone has been watching kind of the Black Church PBS special, there's a particularity in the Black Church narrative, and yes, it is all part of the Christian family, but it's also different We can't kind of mesh them in together. So I think for Black students to thrive in that climate, I think we really need to get into that, looking specifically of kind of what's being taught, whose ways of knowing are prioritized privilege, the way that we as a Christian institution talk about our faith and display our faith, whether it is in music or whether it is in people speaking or just the assumptions of what it is to be a Christian. I think prioritizing that. And then I do think the compositional piece is a piece of that. Overly focusing on that and assuming that it's going to change culture is problematic, but you also need the people there. You have to have the professors, the Black professors who are leading that and who are bringing that to the classroom. I think of faculty governance, who are pushing that in faculty governance as they're going through curriculum review. So all of these levers in higher ed, and particularly at APU, that I think we have to be pulling.
That's good. That's good. That raises a point too about the value of having diverse representation, not just within the student body, but definitely within the academy. And I know that is definitely a part of the vision that's aligned with Renewal, our university strategic plan. But having those cultural representation within the academy is key, but also for majority faculty to also be culturally proficient. And I think that's your comments kind of speak to that, and Brandy, your thoughts actually relay, I think, that same sentiment. So appreciate your responses. Mireya, I'm curious about your thoughts. How can APU grow a climate, a culture that enables Black students to thrive?
Yeah, definitely to echo the representation within faculty and staff, within the counseling center. We definitely need more representation there. I think that's a good one. I think recognizing that there's a lot of students who are at APU who want to be leaders and who want to advocate and be agents of change on campus. So giving them a platform to speak, but then also having action that follows that. I think a lot of us leaders, we want to feel that we have purpose and we want to feel that we have a voice, because the world is already going to shut us down. So it's important that we feel like we have spaces where we're heard, and then there's action that's going to follow that. I think something else that's important is to highlight on the successes that we do have at APU in terms of diversity, and let the student body know that those changes are being made and that those changes are happening. So that way we can have moments where we can celebrate and we can be excited about those things. And then after, have a follow-up and that comes after it. So for example, we have ethnic organizations, and we're working to bring greater representation when it comes to faculty and staff. We have, I think you said, Dr. Hall, over 60% minority students on campus, and we're working to make sure that they feel like they have spaces where they feel included. So I think, like I said, just rejoicing in the good that's happening, but then following up with that that lets students know that, we're still working to even improve on the improvements that have been made. I think that would be something that's really powerful.
It's good. It's good. So, Bishan, we actually have a question from Dr. Reichart, and it's related to climate, but it goes back to an initial response that you provided. And here's the question. Since you have experienced 2 other universities aside from APU, I wonder if any of the other schools you attended had a climate where you felt welcome, valued, and empowered to optimally learn. And if so, what were some of their practices that you saw that helped foster such a climate? I know that's a loaded question.
No worries. I believe, answering the first portion, did the schools that I attend basically
prior to APU?
Prior to APU, basically prepare me to create a climate that I do now.
Did they have a climate that you felt was welcoming and where you felt valued?
I don't want to say no, but I also don't want to say yes. And I know that sounds confusing, but just go with it.
That's fine.
I believe it was based on not just the climate, but like the people I had around me. Like I said, I try not to, I've learned not to look at a school through the eyes of one person.
Mm.
To say that, like, say there's a leader that does have power, the president, whether it's like, I think financial aid has power. Like looking through them, I try not to look at a school just through their eyes, because I have to understand that just like it has so many different factors and branches. But the schools that I did attend, they had their own issues, let's just say that. And I had to learn from deprivation how to create an environment where I had to welcome myself. And that kind of snowballed. I don't know if that makes sense. So just like when I became the welcoming, I was my own welcoming environment, people tend to cling to that. And they're just like, oh, well, I want to look at this school through the eyes of you because you're welcoming. And so that tended to bounce from others and other departments. I made it a goal to befriend every department on that campus. I was always with the financial aid people. I was always with the admissions counselors. I was always with my professors. And it's almost like I did that because I'm just like, let me let you know that I'm here. So I'll let you know that I'm here, then maybe you'll be more welcoming. It's like, I don't think you welcome someone that they don't know that's there. So I just became, I guess, the welcome committee at some point. And like I said, I had to learn from deprivation, and just kind of, I guess, what I learned and how I had to prepare myself there, I think kind of sparked my, like, motivation to create the climate here. And that's why I said earlier in the response that I made is that I know that APU has its own, flaws and, like, deprivations and so on and so forth. But I learned not to look at it through its deprivations, but to look at, like, okay, what's needed. Because I can sit here and I can tell you what you don't have, but that doesn't help you if I don't provide you with what you don't have.
Yeah,
and
that's
so,
good.
Yeah, so I did that. I had to learn how to create, like, be, like I said, be the welcome committee, learn how to create a space. And I brought that over here because I saw that, like, I know what this is like. I know what this feels like not to have a space. So I'm going to start stirring that pot again, become that space, and make sure that what I witness, I speak up about.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I think that lens and approach is really important. I think most people would say that APU is a strengths-based campus. So as we step, well, right now we're not stepping on the campus because of the pandemic, but when we evaluate the campus, we start by, really identifying the strengths. And there are a lot of strengths that's associated with APU. But the next step is to say, okay, what are the gaps and how do we move forward? And in my estimation, that's what the strategic plan is really designed to do. But as you know, like substantive change, it takes time. Adaptive change, it takes time. So I want to make sure, I know time is moving so quickly. I want to make sure we have adequate time to highlight the role that ethnic orgs, specifically Black ethnic orgs, play as we go through this season of institutional change, but also historically, what has Black ethnic orgs role been in providing, I like how you put it, Mireya, space for students to culturally engage, et cetera. So since all of you are leaders of distinct ethnic orgs, esteemed ethnic orgs at APU, can you highlight the benefits that are associated with your respective Black ethnic affinity organizations?
I'm glad
Mireya,
you
why don't we
asked.
start with, well, Brandy, you go ahead. Go ahead, Brandy.
Following up on what Bishan said is that she learned how to self-validate in an invalidating environment. And I think why Black ethnic orgs are necessary is that there's hosts of people who do not have the strength or the skill to self-validate. And so we're able to say, you're scared, you're in an invalidating environment, come be community with us, we can validate you. We can help support you developing that muscle, and we can also be the voice for you when you don't want to go up against a power differential or whatever it is. And so that's the role that partly we've been playing, is like providing that community when there wasn't a sense of one, and providing a way to, you know, talk to you, Dr. Hall, or even Dr. Gerges on the call, or whoever our leaders are, to say like, there's people too scared to speak up. So we're going to raise our hand.
That's good. That's good. And we should commend you, Brandy. You and your co-leader basically started this society for our Black students. This is actually the inaugural academic year, right?
Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, of course. Of course. All right, let me hear from others.
I can chime in next. The Black Student Association, we are a safe haven for African American students on campus. We provide a space where students can have safe social outlets about their experience at APU, whether that's the cultural climate and a whole, their experiences within the classroom. For anybody who might be tuning in on the board of BSA, they might know what I'm talking about here. We always have this fun little argument kind of back and forth, or not really argument, but a debate. It's like, should BSA be educational or should it be fun? Should we have a more educational meeting this Thursday, or should we have a fun meeting this Thursday? And the answer to that is both and. So not only is BSA a place where, you know, we talk about like educational things and we're educating our community, but it's also a place where we can have fun and we can gather and we can be Black in peace, and we can just like be Black and be excited about it. We can have soul food, and, you know, we can invite our friends who, you know, aren't Black to come and enjoy our soul food and eat and have a good time. We can listen to our music. You know, we get to create the playlist. So when you come in, you already know it's going to be really hype. It's going to be popping and all that jazz. So it's just a fun experience. I've been in love with BSA the moment I saw it on APU's campus. So yeah, it supports our Black students in every way, shape, or form.
So let me write that. It can be hype, popping, and all that
and all that jazz. Right, you can quote me on that. You can quote me. Yeah.
I like how you use phrases from different generations.
Right. Yeah. I'm trying to make sure that it's
all that jazz in there.
Yeah, I'm trying to include everyone on this call. Everyone from all ages.
Oh, that's great. That's fantastic. So the time's moving. We literally have just a few minutes. Why don't we go with Bishan briefly, Bishan, and then Joshua. I would love for you to speak to obviously BDSA, but you also serve as vice president of our Black Faculty Staff Administrators Association, which is an ethnic affinity organization for our Black faculty and administrators of color. So I would love for you to speak to both of those after Bishan, if you'll be so kind.
Okay. Well, with BPSO, we are fairly new. This is something that me and actually Joshua Canada had to really talk about and really pour our hearts into. So, you know, thank you once again, Joshua, for just being hand in hand with me as we created this organization. And what BGSO basically is this new outlet for Black graduate students. I have sat in classes where I haven't seen anyone that looked like me, that not necessarily just thought like me, but understood where I was coming from in regards to my thoughts. And I just had to just let it out. Just like, you know what? I think I need a space as a graduate student. And so creating that space, we wanted to make sure that, like, you know, this space was purposeful, it was meaningful, it was useful as well. We are professionals, we are going into the work field right after this. And so I kept that in mind, and I prayed really hard about, like, Lord, like, what is this organization going to be? Because I needed to have a strong foundation. And I just thought about the movie Princess and the Frog. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's African-American girl in New Orleans, Louisiana. That's me. And she had such an impactful part in the movie where she made gumbo in her daddy's pot, and she went outside on her patio and yelled out to her community and said, "Hey, everybody, I made gumbo." And, you know, and everybody in her community came to her patio and they ate from the pot that she created the, gumbo from. And I was just like, that is just like a picture of what I want BGSO to be. It's just like, you know what, this is our community, and I'm not going to walk by and look at you in lack or deprivation or like there's scarcity. I'm going to say, I made gumbo, come get some gumbo. We're all going to resource share. We're going to be the ladder that seems as though the world has taken from that, Black graduate students. So I just want to be that ladder, want to be that resource, want to be that networking, and also be that advocacy and be that service of just like Brandy said, I'm going to raise my hand if you're too afraid to raise your hand. I'm going to create a platform just like, hey, I'm going to lay down a foundation. You stand on there and you say, hey, I'm here. I'm want to be seen. I want to be heard because I matter. Like, that's what BGSO is.
Sean.
So
B. Sean, you're trying to preach on a Thursday. Good grief.
Yes, good job. I didn't do nothing.
That's no, B. Sean, we are so grateful for your heart and for your willingness to start BGSO, and it is so needed. And thank you so much for sharing that response. I mean, we felt that, no doubt about it. Joshua, why don't you close us out?
Yeah, I'll give the two things real quick. So I think about the BDSA, and I kind of have to harken back to Jasmine George Williams, who started this several years ago, and the value that we have to go into a doctoral program when there's a low percentage of Black men and women represented in doctoral programs, and to have that connectedness, have people sojourning with us. So one of the current BDSA members, on their way to their first semester, got an email about a gathering, and they said, okay, I think I can do this. I think I'm in the right place, because they're, again, that space, that familiarity, and then so I think that is a piece of how this functions. I also think intellectually we spur, in our program specifically, we spur one another on in our research and talking about what's important. How are you wrestling with this idea? How are you bringing your perspective? And I think that's essential. We also there's an alumni piece that we're connected to, our alums. So as we are going out into the field, having that network of Black alums from the higher ed department, both the EDD and the PhD, is really essential. So we're entering into a broader community that's facilitated by BDSA. And then I think, and I'll switch to BAFSA real quick, but I think one of the tensions, and I kind of already brought it up, is this this mix of changing the institution versus being the support generative space for one another. And I think there are times, BDSA a little bit, I know other Black student organizations, it can feel more so, that sometimes the weight of change is put on students. And there's one thing to have voice and to say, hey, this is lacking, or like, I didn't get this perspective. We're looking at higher ed, and we're really just looking at like a white male, affluent bourgeoisie version of it. Can we get a little bit more critical about what was going on? There's one thing to have to say that, and then there's another thing for the weight of change being on students, balancing the rest of their lives. And trying to get
a good comment.
So I think that has to be said out there. So real quick with BFSAA. So this is as Keith said, the Black Faculty Staff Administrators Association. So we're a group of Black faculty and staff administrators who get together, and we have some things that we do in supporting students. So that's some of my connection to the women on the call, is my role in supporting them, but also supporting scholarship and promotion of Black faculty and staff at APU. It's been an interesting piece or thing for us to add, because I think people felt very isolated. They did feel very isolated, not really knowing who else was here. So even some of the communal pieces of let's gather together and have lunch. So the Black men have done that before we went remote, and then we pivoted, if you will, to doing that on Zoom. And just that, again, connectivity that many folks in the departments, even though compositionally there may be some representation within their unit, they are often the only ones. And so I think that's one of the things that BFSAA has been able to do, and really wanting to lean into more of, on the faculty side and even the staff side, how are we generating scholarship and intellectual development? How are we one another. So ultimately, that's where we're hoping to go.
Yeah, that's so good. Thank you for sharing. Look, the time goes by way too fast. We needed at least 3 hours. We needed at least 3 hours. But I am so grateful, and I know that our participants, our faculty, staff, administrators, they appreciate the leadership that you bring to our community, the heart that you bring, the way that you cultivate sense of belonging for so many of our students, not just Black students, but so many of our students and faculty and staff. So on behalf of our community, thank you so much for your leadership and even your participation. This is not an easy discussion to have, in front of collegiate colleagues, but all of you did wonderfully. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. Hey, do me a huge favor, because I know we have students that are still on the call. If you'll be so kind to include the email address where they can make contact with you if they're interested in learning more about the ethnic organization that you lead. So if you can include that in chat, that would be phenomenal. And we'll do our best to email that out to all participants a little bit later. Hey, real quickly before everybody log off, we wanted to share literally 2 minutes of announcements. Obviously, we're grateful for the panelists for supporting this conversation. It takes a village. We have a second panel discussion next week that will feature our APU Black men at the undergraduate, master's level, and doctoral level. The title of the session is A Seat at the Table. And so that's taking place on Wednesday, the 24th. So we hope you'll join us for that event and definitely spread the word. And then secondly, we're hosting a virtual concert entitled Reimagine Music that will feature J. Michael O'Neill, who is a performer, producer, professor in the School of Music. And we just actually learned this information for those of you who may be interested. We just secured Propaganda. He's going to serve as the MC for that virtual event. That's taking place on Thursday, the 25th, from 10:30 to 11:30. So we hope you'll join us for that virtual concert. Mireya kind of alluded to it. Black music has played a very integral role in this country. I mean, if we walk from the authorship of old Negro spirituals to jazz, to the blues, to rhythm and blues, to hip hop, music has always been a way to discuss the struggle of Black people, to inspire inspiration, to speak truth and love. And so J. Mike is going to lead us on that journey and how those different genres of music have been a source of hope for Black people, but for so many people, so many Americans in this nation. So don't miss that. It's going to be absolutely phenomenal. And by the way, we're not recording that. That's going to be live. And so if you have a date at 10:30 with someone, you need to go ahead and cancel it now so that you can join us for that event. By the way, we're going to publish it through APU, or you'll have access to it through apu.edu live. So thank you so much. Last shout out to Stephanie Haskins. Thanks for all your work behind the scenes, our IMT team, and helping us with this event. Look, we're grateful for our community. Thank you for your disposition. Thank you for your heart in joining us for this event and your work in advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion here at APU. All right, blessings to everybody. Panelists, thanks so much. You did phenomenal. Thank you so much.